Trump's revocable trust account, which is marked as Exhibit 5B. It is a check for $35,000, and it is dated March 17th, 2017, after the president took office. It's right now on the screen. Do you see it, sir?
Yes, sir.
To be clear, the Trump Revocable Trust is the trust the president set up to hold his assets after he became president. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Do you know why you were paid from the trust as opposed to the president's personal account?
I don't know the answer to that.
Did you think it was odd that he paid you once from his personal account and then he's paying you through the scheme of a trust?
I'll be honest, I was just happy to get the check.
Today you testify that the check was signed by Donald Trump Jr. and the Trump Organization CFO, Alan Weisselberg. Is that correct?
That is correct.
According to the criminal charges against you, you sent monthly invoices containing false information to an individual identified as Executive 1. Weisselberg is Executive 1, correct?
Yes.
The criminal charge against you then states that Executive 1 forwarded your invoice to someone referred to as Executive 2. Presumably, Donald Trump Jr., who's signing this check, is Executive 2, correct?
I believe so.
As federal prosecutors laid out in their criminal charges, payments like this check resulted in numerous false statements in the books and records of the Trump Organization. And it's important for the American public to understand this. Nothing to do with collusion. This is financial fraud, garden variety financial fraud. It was disguised as a payment for legal services to you. But this was not a payment for legal services, was it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
It could give rise to serious state and federal criminal liability if a corporation is cooking its books. Based on your testimony today, Donald Trump Jr. and Alan Weisselberg directed this payment to you and approved this payment. Is that right?
Mr. Trump initially acknowledged the obligation, the debt. Myself and Alan Weisselberg went back to his office, and I was instructed by Alan at the time that they were going to do this over 12 installments. And what he decided to do then was to have me send an invoice, in which case they can have a check cut. And then, yes, the answer would be yes to your follow-up.
And Donald Trump Jr. obviously signed off on this.
Yes, well, it would either be Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and or Alan Weisselberg, but always Alan Weisselberg on the check.
And you think Executive 2 is Donald Trump Jr.?
Yes.
They knew that this payment was false and illegal, correct?
I can't make that conclusion.
You told Representative Kelly that the president was aware of this scheme. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I just want the American public to understand the explosive nature of your testimony in this document. Are you telling us, Mr. Cohen, that the president directed transactions in conspiracy with Alan Weisselberg and his son, Donald Trump Jr., as part of a criminal conspiracy of financial fraud? Is that your testimony today?
Yes.
And do you know if this criminal financial scheme that the president, Alan Weisselberg, and Donald Trump Jr. are involved in is being investigated by the Southern District of New York?
I'd rather not discuss that question because it could be part of an investigation that's currently ongoing.
But I just want the American public to understand that solely apart from Bob Mueller's investigation, there is garden variety financial fraud. And your allegation and the explosive smoking gun document suggests that the president, his son, and his CFO may be involved in a criminal conspiracy. And isn't it true, Mr. Cohen, that this criminal conspiracy that involved 4 people, that there's only one person so far who suffered the repercussions, and that's why you're in jail?
We'll be going to jail, yes.
There are 3 other people, though, who were equally involved in this conspiracy. Is that true?
It is true.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. I yield back my time.
Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cohen, I'm going to tackle the president's tax returns. During the 2016 campaign, you said you personally wouldn't, quote, allow him to release those returns until the audits are over, unquote. For the record, nothing prevents individuals from sharing their own tax returns, even while under audit by the IRS. Mr. Cohen, do you know whether President Trump's tax returns were really under audit by the IRS in 2016?
I don't know the answer. I asked for a copy of the audit so that I could use it in terms of my statements to the press, and I was never able to obtain one.
Okay. So do you have any inside knowledge about what was in the president's tax returns that he refused to release?
I do not.
Can you give us any insight into what the real reason is that the president has refused to release his tax returns?
Statements that he had said to me is that what he didn't want was to have an entire group of think tanks that are tax experts run through his tax return and start ripping it to pieces, and then he'll end up in an audit and he'll ultimately have taxable consequences, penalties, and so on.
So that's an interesting point, that basically he said he didn't want to release his tax returns because he might end up in an audit. So could you presume from that statement that he wasn't under audit?
I presume that he's not under audit.
And the reason why I bring this up, because I'm also the only Democrat on this committee that also serves on the Committee of Ways and Means. It's the chief tax writing committee in the House of Representatives. And it's the only committee in the House of Representatives that has jurisdiction to request an American's tax returns, and that includes the President of the United States. My constituents need to know whether the president has financial ties that are causing him to protect his own bottom line rather than the best interests of this country. Can he be blackmailed because of his financial and business ventures, including by foreign governments? And I know the opposition is the first thing they're going to ask or say is that he released his financial disclosure forms. But I believe that there's other things we can learn from his taxes. Do you have any idea what we can learn in his tax returns if we actually got our hands on them?
No, I've seen them. I just have never gone through them. They're quite long.
Quite long. One of the things I also find ironic is the way they're kind of attacking you is to undermine your credibility. Is one of the ways is by saying that you committed bank fraud and tax evasion. And the reason why is a big deal is that it really goes down to a person's character when it comes to taxes. But yet the Republican minority has never asked to see his taxes, right? Something that for 40 years, Democrats and Republicans alike have released their tax returns to prove to the American people that they didn't have financial interests that would be leverageable by a foreign government. But this minority refuses to ask for his tax returns. I also want to kind of go on. I'm noticing a pattern about the president and those in his inner circle. Special counsel Robert Mueller's team has indicted or received guilty pleas from 34 people and 3 companies that we know of, the latest being long-term Trump advisor Roger Stone. That group includes 6 former Trump advisors. It appears that the president has a fondness for entrusting those who will, 1, lie for him, 2, break the law for him, 3, cheat the system for him. Essentially, he wants to surround himself with people who are just like him. Would you agree with that statement?
From the facts and circumstances, it appears so.
Mr. Cohen, the American people have a lot of questions when it comes to this president, to his conduct. When he went to Helsinki and he bowed before Vladimir Putin. And nobody can really understand why he acts the way he acts. And we believe that the way we get those answers is really looking at everybody that surrounds him, who he's been associated with, and his tax returns, because that is the only way that we can get down to the bottom line. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman.